Hello, I'm Ben Tuman, and welcome to Skipped History. Today's story is about the 1979 Greensboro Massacre. I read about it in Bring the War Home by Kathleen Belew and The End of the Myth by Greg Grandin. If I may jump right into some unpleasant imagery. Today, photos of people on the far right sporting both swastikas and Confederate flags are common. But neo-Nazis and neo-confederates didn't always go together like gin and juice, or as they might say, like ranch and vichyssoise, a delicious cold potato soup when you add ranch. Think about it. Although Hitler took inspiration from Jim Crow laws, Southerners were that good at subjugating people, very few US white supremacists at the time supported the Nazis, and they still went to war against each other. So when and why did the divisions between white power groups fade away? To answer that question, let's talk about the Greensboro Massacre, when Ku Klux Klan members and American Nazis on November 3, 1979, shot and killed 5 Communist Workers' Party members and managed to get away with it. For context, let's revisit the year 1898. Then, as we saw in our episode about the Spanish-American War, the U.S. launched its first major war abroad in the Philippines. The war acted as an opportunity for Southern soldiers to prove their loyalty to the Union after the Civil War without, having to atone for supporting slavery. There, and in each subsequent U.S. military occupation, writes Greg Grandin, Southern soldiers could fight in the name of the loftiest ideals, liberty, valor, self-sacrifice, camaraderie, while still putting down people of color. And that they did, killing tens of thousands of people in Nicaragua, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. Unsurprisingly, these military excursions created a fertile breeding ground for racism and sympathy for white supremacist projects like the Confederacy. As one newspaper wrote during the Vietnam War, judging by the display of flags for sale on a Saigon street corner, the Confederate flag is more popular than the flag of several countries, which is impressive, considering that the Isle of Man's flag depicts 3 dismembered legs wearing enviously fashionable slippers. And these festering white supremacist sympathies took sharper form after Vietnam. People like Martin Luther King Jr. began to observe that war made things worse for people abroad while draining attention and resources away from issues at home, kind of like a giant demonic suction tube, which you can picture like the one that got Augustus Gloop in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Meanwhile, many soldiers, embittered by anti-war and anti-racist sentiment at home, began to see anyone with left-leaning sympathies, whether it be Vietnamese troops or civil rights activists, as their enemy. As Klan Grand Dragon Gorell Pierce proclaimed in 1979, sure, you take a man who fought in the Second World War, it's hard for him to sit down in a room full of swastikas, unless, of course, you add little feet to them, but people realize time is running out to defeat communism and we're going to have to get together. Pierce issued that statement at a meeting in North Carolina where Klansmen and neo-Nazis pledged to share resources and formed a new group called the United Racist Front. From the get-go, the URF's main target was North Carolina's Communist Workers' Party. Why? Well, the CWP consisted of everyone the hate groups had come to hate: labor organizers, communist Jews, and black power activists. The feeling was mutual. The CWP loathed the far right and took the position that organizing against the Klan required aggressive confrontation. Hence why, in July 1979, they protested a screening of the pro-Klan movie Birth of a Nation that was co-hosted at a community center by Klansmen and neo-Nazis. The white power groups were so infuriated that the CWP interrupted what was set to be a fun, sweet, genocide-supporting movie night that their pals in the URF studied photos of the protest to see whom to beat up at the CWP's planned Death to the Klan rally in Greensboro a few months later. On the day of the protest, CWP members showed up with hard hats and police clubs. The URF, which was essentially a paramilitary force and counted many Vietnam vets among its ranks, took a different approach and caravaned to the demonstration armed with handguns, shotguns, hunting knives, axe handles, clubs, chains, mace, tear gas, and several dozen eggs for throwing at their left-wing antagonists. Because, as everyone knows, you don't bring an egg to a gunfight. You bring a lot of them. After the caravan swerved into the demonstrators, 12 URF members got out of their cars, distributed weapons, and began firing into the crowd. By the time police arrived, they were allegedly still eating breakfast when the altercation broke out. 5 people lay dead or dying, and the white power gunmen were nowhere to be seen. Now, given that the event was caught on film by news crews, it wasn't hard for Greensboro District Attorney Mike Schlosser to identify and charge the caravanners with murder, felony riot, and conspiracy. It was, however, much harder to convict them when the case went to trial in August 1980. At the time, North Carolina allowed thanks geese, peremptory challenges, which allowed defense attorneys to dismiss jurors without cause. The practice, which was later banned for being racially prejudicial, ensured the defense could compose a sympathetic all-white jury in the case, with one of the chosen jury members describing the Klan as patriotic and neo-Nazis as strongly patriotic. Even District Attorney Schlosser, when asked by a reporter about his ability to objectively prosecute the case, referenced his experience fighting in Vietnam, adding, "And you know who my adversaries were there." We do now. Anyone who tried to teach you the definition of objectively. Shockingly, but not, the jury returned a not guilty verdict on all counts. When the case went to trial for a second time in January 1984, the URF gunmen walked free again, successfully arguing that they'd acted under anti-communist political motivations, not racist motivations, which apparently made it okay to kill people in the 1980s. When the case went to trial for a third time, this time in a civil suit, the jury did find some of the gunmen and absent policemen liable for the deaths, but the only demonstrator whose death they ruled wrongful was the one who didn't belong to the CWP. In other words, the court condemned killing unless you killed communists, in which case, ranch, Vichyssoise, do your thing. Hate groups got the message and began to unite nationwide. Soon, Klansmen in California saying, if the Nazis don't get you, the Klan will. In Detroit, neo-Nazis marched with signs reading, "Smash communism, Greensboro again." And as another white power member wrote, we must increase activity while juries made up of God-fearing white people free our street activists, such as in the Greensboro case. By the mid-1990s, far-right-leaning militia groups consisting of the newly entrenched blend of Nazis and white supremacists counted as many as 5 million members and supporters, matching the largest ever surge of the KKK in 1924 and proving once again that you should always flush egg-loving bullies down the garbage chute when you get the chance.
I want it now!
Otherwise, they start running rampant, and the boundaries between who their enemies are and where they fight them begin to fade away. And you end up with a twisted cycle of bigots fighting people of color at home, then killing them abroad, then bringing the war home again. A cycle that took an unexpected turn in 1986. Tune in next time to learn more about that bit of skipped history.